The following lecture was first presented at the British Association for Jewish Studies in Manchester in the summer of 2015. The topic of the conference was Atheism, Skepticism, and Challenges to Monotheism. The title of this paper is Monotheism and Skepticism. Both the paper and the wider conference attempt to account for the persistence and significance of skepticism as a feature of Jewish intellectual life. In the YouTube notes, I will place a link to the published version of this paper and all the papers from the conference. Now the lecture. Monotheism is atheism regarding 99.9% of gods. The habits of mind which gave Israel's ancestors cause to doubt the existence of the pagan deities sometimes lead their descendants to doubt the existence of any personal god, however conceived. Monotheism was and is a powerful form of skepticism. Doubt is a basic mental operation for human beings as social creatures. If not for doubt, people would be completely at the mercy of swindlers, liars, and fools. We would have to do and believe whatever was suggested to us, but of course we don't. Biblical laws regarding accurate weights and measures testify to the recognition of deception and therefore the necessity of doubt. Semantically, doubt must be preceded by a claim that is this object of doubt. Animals, being nonverbal, cannot experience doubt. Confusion, but not doubt. A shrewd human being is constantly assessing the ability and inclination of claimants to tell the truth. When a claim is evaluated negatively, wholly or partially, there is the presence of doubt. Most assessments of claims will involve some measure of doubt and some measure of persuasion. Evidence is rarely unambiguous. A decided preference for doubt can be called skepticism. One may be a skeptic with regard to claims in general, or a skeptic with regard to a certain realm of inquiry. The Hebrew Bible has no word for doubt. People of all biblical eras must have experienced doubt or employed doubt as a mental operation, but the lack of vocabulary for doubt may indicate a fairly innocent stage in its development. Biblical men and women were, of course, constantly exercising discernment and sophistication regarding the claims of others. The term for such discernment is binah, or tevunah. Exercising binah means to distinguish the authentic from the counterfeit, the truthful from the false, the valuable from the worthless. In search of a biblical attitude toward doubt, our minds turn to the Pharaoh of the Exodus. We are told that his heart was hardened, toughened, and stubborn. He is the Exodus story's example of the kind of rebellious doubt of which it does not approve. A classic positive portrayal of discernment, binah, is the account of King Solomon's court. Confronted by two women claiming the same baby, he evaluated their ability and inclination to tell the truth. Altering the situation in order to alter their motivations, he discovered which claim to believe and which to doubt. A related example of a biblical character exercising discernment brings us again to the story of Solomon. The Queen of Sheba confessed to King Solomon, "It was a true report that I heard in my own land of your accomplishments and of your wisdom. However, I did not believe the reports," she said, "until I came and my eyes had seen it. Velo he'amanti ladvarim ad asher bati v'tir'ena enai." Lo he'amanti ladvarim. To paraphrase, the reports of your wisdom were so wondrous and extraordinary that reports alone could not overcome my doubt. Reports merited further investigation, but only direct experience was sufficient to render such claims truly believable. Kohelet elevates doubt from the realm of prudence regarding everyday claims to a philosophical stance. For the fate of human beings and the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beasts, for all is vanity. Who knows? Mi Yodea, whether the spirit of a human being goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down to the earth? Kohelet's argument is all doubt. Only what can be observed can be known. Who knows, mi yodea, if the spirit of a human being rises upwards, while that of an animal descends below? He takes a widely held folk belief and dismisses it as completely without evidence, or at least conclusive evidence. A claim for which there is no relevant experience must forever remain in the realms of the unknown. This preference for human experience as a source of knowledge is typical of biblical wisdom literature. Now we turn to the issue of monotheism as an expression of doubt. In a henotheistic form of religion, the worshipper gives exclusive loyalty to one particular deity without explicitly denying the existence of the entities worshipped by others. This form of religion is also called monolatry. It is widely thought that Israel moved through a stage of henotheism in a progression from Canaanite polytheism to monotheism. In Joshua chapter 24, the prophet addressed Israel, urging faithfulness to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh alone. His language is henotheistic, at least formally. He does not dispute the existence of other gods. He demands exclusive service to Israel's God as a matter of loyalty. Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve him in sincerity and faithfulness. Put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if you be unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Entities whom others serve as gods are spoken of as if they exist, but for Israel they must not be objects of worship. When the emerging monotheists came to assert that there is no other God, what precisely were they asserting? What is it to be a god? If we are to probe the extent of Israel's doubt in the existence of other gods, we must first understand the claim which is the object of doubt. Our first answer must be circular. To be a god is to receive worship as a god, and to worship is to treat an entity as a god. Divine service involved a relatively small number of ritualized behaviors. The presence of these behaviors, or any others intended as worship, signified recognition of a god. From the satire of idol worship in Isaiah chapter 44, we learn that to be a god is to have power to save, or to be regarded as having such power. This is what the prophet denies to idols carved from wood. Prayers or rituals seeking deliverance, directed at such entities, do not succeed, and that is why they are not truly gods. Who fashions a god, or casts an image that is profitable for nothing? He cuts down cedars. He chooses a holm tree or an oak and lets it grow strong among the trees of the forest. He plants a cedar and the rain nourishes it. Half of it he burns in the fire. Over the half he eats flesh. He roasts meat and is satisfied. He also warms himself and says, "Aha, I am warm. I have seen the fire." And the rest of it he makes into a god, his idol, and falls down to it and worships it. He prays to it and says, "Deliver me, for thou art my God. Hatzileni ki eli ata." No one considers, nor is there knowledge or discernment. Velo dat velo tevunah. To say, half of it I burned in the fire. I also baked bread on its coals. I roasted flesh and have eaten. And shall I make the residue of it an abomination? Shall I fall down before a block of wood? The phrase Hatzileni ki eliata is the key. To be a god is to have the power and potentially the disposition to deliver the worshiper. In Judges chapter 10, again we see that the essence of service to a god is the expectation of deliverance. And the Lord said to the people of Israel, "You have forsaken me and served other gods. Therefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry to the gods whom you have chosen. Let them deliver you in your time of distress." A god must not only have power, it must be responsive to human entreaties. That is why biblical satire of idolatry focuses on the unresponsiveness of idols to human appeals. Psalm 115 is most elegant in this regard, if contempt can be elegant. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths but do not speak, eyes but do not see. They have ears but do not hear, noses but do not smell. They have hands but do not feel, feet but do not walk, and they do not make a sound in their throat. Those who make them are like them, so are all who trust in them. Biblical monotheism denies, in some cases, that the gods of the pagans exist at all. Those that exist do not exist as gods. This fine distinction makes the margin between henotheism and monotheism quite narrow. Israel never ceased to believe in the existence of a variety of superhuman entities which they did not worship, such as angels and such as the heavenly bodies. Such entities do not cease to exist simply because others treat them as gods. The opening chapter of Genesis recognizes that the sun has power and that it dominates the day, and that the moon has power and that it dominates the night. However, biblical imagination denies that the sun and moon have independent personality and will. Invocation of them does not produce any effect. If one wishes to affect the operations of sun and moon, one must invoke Israel's God. Therefore, for Israelites, sun and moon were not divinities. Although it so happens that the cosmology of the Bible asserts that Israel's God is the creator, as a matter of semantics, it is not necessary to be the creator in order to be a god. And it is not even necessary to be a god in order to be a creator, that is, to be the cause of the physical world in its current form or part of it. That which has saving power, or is regarded as having such power, which can be invoked as gods are normally invoked by offerings of food, wine, meat, grain, milk, dance, firstborn babies, sex, incense, or prayer. Such entities are referred to as gods in the way that language is used in the Bible. As a biblical expression of pure monotheism, we might cite Deuteronomy chapter 4, which has been taken up in the Aleinu prayer. Yud He Vav He is God. In the heavens above and on the earth beneath, there is no other. Ki Hashem hu ha'elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od. There is no other does not mean that no other entities exist at all. Some modern Jewish interpreters do read Deuteronomy chapter 4 in that sense, as an expression of pantheism or panentheism, but it does not seem likely that biblical writers held that view. Entities other than God existed for the emerging monotheists, certainly, but they were not divine beings. Even if people should offer them food, wine, meat, grain, milk, dance, firstborn babies, orgies, incense, or prayer, contrary to the commandments, there would be no benefit, because those other entities did not have invocable power. The only effect likely to result would be a negative response from Israel's God for betrayal of the covenant. Therefore, if pure monotheism means non-belief in all superhuman entities besides Israel's God, I must conclude that complete monotheism was never reached in the era of the Bible or classical Judaism. As it emerged in the history of Israel, monotheism was not an ontological theory or a philosophical position. There is no discussion within the Bible of the necessity of an uncaused cause, or any such philosophical argument for a single supreme being. Biblical monotheism was a denial of the legitimacy, even the existence, of all religious competitors to Israel's patron deity. Post-exilic Israel did reach the stage where their doubts on the efficacy of idols completely overwhelmed any lingering belief. Trust in idols was ultimately seen as wicked, foolish, and silly. For centuries, idols and heavenly bodies had appealed vividly to Israelites as objects of worship, but eventually the appeal was gone, and they became objects of ridicule and satire. In a powerful dramatic scene full of theatrical tension and special effects, Elijah is portrayed challenging the worshippers of Baal to a demonstration of divine power. "Let 2 bulls be given to us, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire to it. And you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God." The legitimacy of Baal or Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh as God is at stake, and the test is agreed upon. The God who answers by fire is truly God. The satire includes the pathetic antics of the 100 priests of Baal, who dance and gash themselves for hours with no result. The irony is sharpened by the mocking comments of Elijah to Baal's priests. "Shout louder. After all, he is a god, but he may be in conversation. He may be relieving himself, or he may be on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and will wake up." The comical portrayal of Baal's priests is followed by Elijah's simple, brief, and humble prayer. Fire immediately descends from heaven and consumes his water-drenched sacrifice. As it transpires on the stage or in the imagination, the demonstration could not be more successful in favor of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. The satire in the tale of Elijah is powerful, for the reader knows that nothing will happen in response to the desperate cries of Baal's prophets. Nothing ever did. Yet the worshippers of Israel's God must be aware that their own cries for help often go unanswered. Fire never really falls from heaven. The same insight that calls Abraham to smash the idols in his father's shop also shakes the altar erected by Elijah. Doubt, once unleashed, is not easily contained. The logic of Elijah's demonstration has a boomerang effect. The premise of the demonstration is that the existence or value of a divinity can be measured by its responsiveness to prayer and sacrifice. Ahab and Jezebel's God is exposed as inadequate in real life as in the drama. Now Elijah's God must be evaluated by the same criteria. When I said that nothing ever happened in response to prayers to Baal, I overstated the case. A teaching of Rabbi Akiva given in the Talmud at Avodah Zarah 55a corrects my overstatement. Zunin said to Rabbi Akiva, "We both know in our heart that there is no reality in an idol. Nevertheless, we see men enter the idol's shrine crippled and come out cured. What is the reason?" Akiva replied, "At the time afflictions are sent upon a man, an oath is imposed upon them. You shall not come upon him except on such and such a day, nor depart from him except on such and such a day, and at such an hour, and through the medium of so, and through such and such a remedy. When the time arrives for them to depart, the man chanced to go to an idolatrous shrine. The afflictions plead, it is right that we should not leave him and depart, but because this fool acts in an unworthy way, shall we break our oath?" In other words, if an illness was destined to go into remission, and a person prayed to the idol for healing at that time, the prayer and the healing would coincide. The devotee would mistakenly confuse coincidence for causation, and faith in the idol would be affirmed. Intermittent reinforcement being stronger psychologically than totally consistent reinforcement, an occasional answered prayer will do even more to perpetuate devotion to a God than consistently answered prayers. When the Elijah story is finished and the readers or listeners return to daily life, they know that the portrayal of Elijah's God starkly contrasts with their own experience. The storyteller framed his dramatic demonstration too well. Israel's God also offers, at best, intermittent reinforcement. The doubt which the ancient readers or listeners habitually applied to the pagan idols must by the same logic attach itself to Yud-He-Vav-He. They may not acknowledge it to themselves, but habits of mind are persistent, and this one will incubate in sensitive minds for 3,000 years. It was inevitable that Israel's preference for doubt should eventually be directed toward the last remaining God. Skepticism is a natural part of the Jewish experience. Different majority religions would wax and wane. The Jewish mind would doubt and question them all, and that doubt would define the Jews' place in the larger society. In the Middle Ages, Jews were non-believers and dissenters as far as the dominant religions were concerned. With the advent of modernity, those skeptical habits of mind could be applied to religion generally, including Judaism itself. The results were volatile and still are. Modern achievements of Jews in the sciences and fields of critical inquiry are deeply rooted culturally. Not acquiescing in what everybody knows, in any body of knowledge, is a Jewish habit of mind. At least I would like to think so. Why are many modern Jews devoted to the heritage of Israel skeptics and even atheists? This is the way of Abraham our father, to doubt and deny, not in a negative and sterile fashion, but in order to clear the ground for the construction of more adequate models of reality.